Spring City Council meeting. If you will stand with me, I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. First item on the agenda is a confirmation of a quorum.
Councilmember Kaler,
Present.
Tholen,
Present.
Brummel,
Present.
Erickson,
Here.
Edmondson,
Here.
Rowan,
Here.
Mayor Levesey.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Next item is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye? Nope, that's a roll call. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Kaler,
Do you want me to discuss or roll call? Yes.
Tholen,
Yes.
Brummel,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Edmondson,
Yes.
Rowan,
Yes.
Mayor Levesey.
Yes.
Carried unanimously.
Next item is item 4. We have a resolution for a appeal for Tim Hortons Coffee Shop. I know the applicant was planning to attend and I don't see him. Okay. Do you want us to continue? Can we, what is continuing for, was just this meeting? Cause tabling, I guess?
It would be a motion to table.
Is anybody interested in tabling? We don't have the applicant to make a presentation. We can continue with it, but it would be without that information. It's up to you guys.
I would move we table it then.
And see if he gets here before we're done with the rest of the meeting. Okay.
Well, that was my question. Are you tabling it
Tabling is
in
just
case
for,
he shows up, then you can bring it up?
yeah, tabling is just for this meeting alone. Continuing it to be to another meeting.
Okay, so, but if he showed up, we go ahead and,
We can bring it back up, yeah.
okay.
I've got a motion to table. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion on tabling item 4 for later in the meeting?
Yes, sir.
Councilmember
We
Erickson.
make it the last, before the legal discussion.
We can do that. I think what we would do is just table it, and then it would be incumbent on somebody to motion to bring it back, wouldn't it?
Yes, that's
If
correct.
they show
Okay.
up.
So
Yes.
just whenever, we could wait until after, or
we-
we could do it just before.
So we will be required to move.
We will
bring it
have to
off the
move to
table.
pull it off the table, yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay, motion and second, still discussion. Any further discussion on tabling item 4? Is this a roll call or a voice vote?
We'll
I-
do roll call.
Okay, I hear roll call. All right, roll call.
Councilmember Tholen,
Aye.
Brummel,
Aye.
Erickson,
No.
Edmondson,
Aye.
Rowan,
Aye.
Kaler,
No.
Mayor Levesey.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. Next is item number 5, Bill 5302 and 5303 that were continued from the April 7th meeting regarding Lake Tapawingo and Lake Lotawana for animal control services. Do you have items read to the record, or are they still in the record from the April 7th meeting?
Still on the record.
Okay, so then I need a motion, or I need somebody to introduce.
I'll introduce
Nope.
it.
Are they still introduced?
Nope, just motion.
I just need a motion to
Motion.
approve Bill 5302 and 5303.
No. No.
Oh, we're just continuing until the next meeting. Okay. Then I need a motion to continue. Councilmember Kaler, is that a motion to continue?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I have a second.
Second.
Any discussion?
Motion to continue to when?
To the, Councilmember Kaler, did I hear a motion to continue to the June 2nd, the city council meeting?
I didn't say that, but I was assuming you would say that, so I'm going to speak that till June 2nd.
That's what I heard. All right, we have a motion to continue these items to the June 2nd city council meeting. I have a second, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Why? Why do we need to do that?
Okay, the discussion, that's a good question. I'm guessing staff, chief, do you have some comments to add?
I passed on your request from the meeting where it was first postponed or tabled, and they have not met your request yet. They have not got back to me, and they're having difficulty doing that, so I offered to hold it till another meeting to see if they can't get those requests answered that you made.
Okay.
Then I'd like to make one comment. If that's the case, then if we're headed out to one of those communities for animal control, are we gonna continue for 2 weeks? To do that
No,
until we
we're
move
not
on?
doing it. There's no agreement in effect.
I know that, I understand
Okay.
that, but I'm just trying to make a point that if it takes that long for them to respond back to you,
Well, the request was that they needed to find their own shelter and their own veterinary service, correct? And I passed that on to them, and they have not been able to do that yet, so we're giving them a little more time to make those
I
agreements
got
and
you, I
arrangements.
got you, sorry.
So they have been in communication with you, they just haven't been able to line that stuff up.
Okay, that's what I was
Okay.
concerned about, they hadn't been back to you at all, that's what.
No, I've been communicating with the
Yeah.
two chiefs of
Okay.
police, but they have not been able to secure what you wanted.
Sorry, I misunderstood what you
Mhm.
were talking about.
Any further discussion? This is a voice vote. Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, no? Motion carries. I have no public comment for the rest of the items, so item 7, introduction and reading of Bill 5313, approving McAtee Lane final plat. Do I have an introduction?
I'll introduce it.
First reading of Bill 5313, an ordinance approving the final plat for McAtee Lane.
Have a
Your Honor, I
motion?
move to approve the first reading and proceed to the second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, no? Motion carries, second reading.
Second reading of Bill 5313, an ordinance approving the final plat for McAtee Lane.
Your Honor, move to approve the second reading, provide the proper ordinance number.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Brummel,
Aye.
Erickson,
No,
Edmondson,
Aye.
Rowan,
Aye.
Kaler,
Aye.
Tholen,
Aye.
Mayor Levisay.
Aye. Next is item number 8.
Right.
No, it's all
Carried
right.
unanimous, or carried and given ordinance number 5416.
Next is item number 8, introduction and reading of a budget amendment. Do I have an introduction?
I'll introduce.
First reading of Bill 5314, an ordinance amending the 2024-25 annual budget of the City of Blue Springs, Missouri.
it's my turn. I
If
move
you-
to
if you were
approve the
offering a
first
motion.
reading and proceed to the second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, no? Motion carries, second reading.
Second
Yep.
reading of Bill 5314, an ordinance amending the 2024-25 annual budget of the City of Blue Springs, Missouri.
Your Honor, move to approve the second reading, provide the proper ordinance number.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Erickson,
Aye.
Edmondson,
Aye.
Rowan,
Aye.
Kaler,
Aye.
Tholen,
Aye.
Brummel,
Aye.
Mayor Levisay.
Aye.
Carried and given ordinance number 5417.
Next, I have the presentation of item number 9. Seems like we will move forward with that,
Uh,
unless you want to make another motion.
Your Honor, didn't we decide we were going to untable the other one prior to this meeting?
We
This
do
meeting?
have an opportunity to do that. Somebody would need to make a motion to untable it.
I move we untable, item number, wherever it was,
Item 4.
item 4.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Erickson to remove from the table item 4. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? The applicant is still not here, that at least I'm aware of. We can move forward with it. We can wait until after the public official liability training. That's where we are now.
The only way I'll go along with it is to table until after the training on it. We've had other people that didn't show up, and if they can't show up, is there a particular reason, Mr. Mallon?
I am not tracking.
He may not have additional information.
Yeah, we let the applicant know the meeting was at 6 o'clock in an email.
And I also told him this afternoon.
And we also told him this afternoon at 3 when he dropped off his presentation.
I think the only potential concern is the difference between the planning commission meeting and city council meetings, but they should be notified that it was 6 o'clock versus 6:30, so.
Okay, let's, then I say let's table it until after, later.
Second.
Bring it up at the end of the meeting.
So do we make another motion now to table it again?
Well, so right now the discussion
We
is
haven't
on
approved
removing it from the table. So we can vote on that. Can somebody withdraw their motion?
We can withdraw.
Am I hearing Councilmember Erickson, you may want to withdraw your motion?
Sure.
Okay.
I would like to withdraw my motion in
So-
lieu of Councilmember Kaler's.
Suggestion,
Additional
okay.
suggestion.
So just kidding. Item number 9, presentation of public official liability training. You are up.
Sorry.
No, I'm just.
Come on. There we go.
And then just. Excellent. And just page down. Or,
Page down
okay,
to do it. And then
gotcha.
I don't know if that's on or not. Okay, it is.
Okay. Good evening. I want to thank Mr. Noel. He mentioned that I can go till 9 o'clock, and because you guys have gotten done so quickly, I get to have a little extra time, so I appreciate that.
We didn't
We're
ask
glad,
for
we're
extra.
glad you're here.
I moved to table.
Yeah. Okay, so tonight, there's a few things we want to touch on, and this presentation is very high level. We're talking like the 100,000-foot view, because there's so many topics that we want to touch on. Probably could spend at least an hour on each of them, but I promise you I will not be doing that. So what we're going to start with is basics of municipal law, and it'll kind of seem like we're bouncing around, and we kind of are, because there's a lot to municipal law, but trying to pick out what might be the most relevant for what you do. Then we're going to talk a little bit about ethics and conflicts of interest, Missouri Sunshine Law, the city council roles and responsibilities, and lastly, we'll finish up with some practical tips. And just for the record, I guess I should introduce myself. I'm Jennifer Baird. I'm with Lauber Municipal Law. We are legal counsel to the city. Okay. Believe it or not all cities are created equal. There are actually several different forms of cities, as well as there's also different types of political subdivisions out there that have some of the same requirements that cities do. Luckily for Blue Springs, I think you are in the type of city that has the most power that the Missouri statutes can give you, and that's because you are a charter city. And what that means is that you can create your own organic law through your charter and your ordinances. This type or form of government is authorized by the Missouri Constitution, and again, under that constitutional provision, it says you have all the powers that the General Assembly could confer. What does that mean? Well, in essence, we've kind of experienced this more recently with regards to the driving and texting laws. Under those laws, there's a statute that says, that cities, that the state actually overrides any city ordinances with regards to that particular topic. So under this form of government, you have all the powers to implement rules and ordinances, except if they are explicitly prohibited. And again, we were not allowed to do any type of change to our texting and driving laws because the statute was specific about cities not being able to control that particular topic. Home rule charters are also, there's a population, when they're formed, it has to be a minimum of 5,000 people. But once the charter is formed, it doesn't, if your population were to change, it doesn't mean your form of government changes. There's also some specific statutes that are found in Chapter 82. Couple of things, there are what we call special charter cities. Lee Summit and Pleasant Hill are special charters. They were formed pursuant to a law that was enacted back in 1875. There's also third-class cities and fourth-class cities. Those types of cities are what we call statutory cities, which means they don't have the power unless it's specifically stated in the Constitution or in the statutes. So they're a little bit different. Fourth-class cities are the most common type. There are no first or second-class cities. Those were changed. Actually, it was repealed in 1975 because those types of cities instead of being called first or second class cities, they actually became those types of charter cities. So there's towns and villages, and like I said, there's other types of special districts out there, like school districts, community improvement districts, TDDs, so lots of different forms of governments in Missouri. So something that's probably a little more specific to you with regards to the types of decision making that you do on a monthly or basis, and that is when you're up there on the dais, you could be making any one of these decisions: a legislative decision, which is when you are making the rules for the city. So, when we adopt ordinances changing the speed limit on Main Street, that is a type of legislative decision. The type of decisions that you make are more important to me as your legal counsel, because if those decisions are challenged, legislative decisions, courts will look at, and even if they don't agree, they give a lot more deference to you with regards to those decisions. Versus if it's some kind of administrative decision. So tonight, when you voted on the plat application, the final plat, that was an administrative decision. And what that means is that the applicant, when they submitted their application, they followed all the laws, all the rules that we set forth in our subdivision regulations. So in essence, they check the box. And if they do that, then we have little or no discretion to deny those types of applications. Lastly, judicial decisions. As the governing body, there's not many that you make, and judicial decisions, as it sounds, is when you're in that role of kind of interpreting the rules. The one time when you are in that position is if you were a board of impeachment. So if any of the members or the mayor, anything would have to go through that process of impeachment, then you would be acting in a judicial role. And so, just know that there are, not every decision you make is a legislative decision. Okay, something else with regards to, you may be asking, with regards to, sometimes we bring forth ordinances, sometimes we bring forth resolutions, and it's there's a question of, well, what's really the difference, and why do we have to have an ordinance versus a resolution? Ordinances, in summary, these are the legislative acts of this body. And, anytime you adopt an ordinance to change the city code, that's creating new law. And that law actually applies to everybody in the city. Resolutions, however, are just more administrative acts. Courts have deemed resolutions to be a mere expression of opinion, or even just a formal written motion. There's no real distinction between that resolution and a motion. And where I could see this come into play, where I have seen it anyway, with regards to some of the cities I represent, is that ordinances, there's a more formality to them, and we'll talk a little bit about that formality. It requires a majority of the governing body to adopt them, versus a resolution. A resolution just requires a majority of those present. So sometimes, if you understand those rules, you can have people that will maybe not vote on something, or they may not even show up. And so, to affect the vote. So someone who knows those, that's where it can be pretty important, which ordinance or resolution, however you bring that forward. So ordinance requirements, as I said, they're a little bit more formal. This is probably the most obvious, but it has to be adopted by a legally existing governing body. We have to say that because your homeowners association can't get together and adopt an ordinance saying we're changing the speed limit in our neighborhood to 10 miles an hour. That's not going to have any effect. The governing body has to have that power to act, and the ordinance itself has to be within the scope of the power of this body. Ordinances have to be reasonable, definite, and certain. So reasonable is kind of a catch-all, kind of trying to keep governing bodies from running amok, but definite and certain terms kind of narrow that down to say, okay, these terms and these ordinances have to be clear enough that people understand what this ordinance is about. And it also, the clearer and more definite we can be in the ordinances, the better it is for enforcement. It also has to be adopted in a certain form, using proper procedure. So ordinances, unlike resolutions, they have to have a title. A lot of ordinances have those whereas clauses. Those are not required, but that is a good roadmap to seeing where, what is it that this ordinance is about? Why are we adopting it? What is our legal authority to do that? And that's where we would put all that information in those whereas clauses. It has to also contain, be it ordained by, has to have that language in the ordinance. It has to be signed by the mayor, unless the mayor chooses not to sign, and then that's called a veto, and it goes through that veto process. And it has to be dated, and there has to be an effective date. As far as the proper procedure, it has to be read 2 times before adoption. Now that could be read in full, or if you want to read by title only, it has to be available prior to that meeting where it's being adopted. So believe me, you don't want to read the ordinances in their entirety. That I've had to do that before, and that's not fun. Ordinances also have to be in harmony with the Constitution and existing laws. So keeping in mind that there is this hierarchy with, statutes have to come under federal constitution and state constitution. Ordinances have to comply with the statutes, and so all this has to be in harmony. Lastly, ordinances have to serve a public purpose, which means in general that they have to benefit everyone in the city, although there are specific ordinances, for example, zoning ordinances, which may affect only one property. But for the most part, ordinances in general have to have a public purpose. Resolutions, again, they just deal with matters of special or temporary character. There's one exception to this in the statutes that say resolutions, that if you are going to increase your expenditures over a budgeted amount, that you have to bring forth a resolution first to explain what that, why is that expenditure going over the budgeted amount, and you do that by resolution. Again, resolutions, there's no formalities of procedure, there's no requirement for them to be signed. Therefore, they're almost veto-proof because the mayor doesn't have to sign them. However, under the Sunshine Law, there is a requirement that on those votes, you have to record all the ayes and nays, and so therefore, you don't have to do a roll call vote, but you just have to say all in favor or all opposed. Okay. Parliamentary procedure, rules of decorum. Rules of decorum, this is a good way to balance not only the business that the city has to do, but also gives individuals a chance to voice their concerns. So this can be done in a manner, and that's the whole purpose of parliamentary procedure is that that this can be done in a respectful manner. A lot of cities have adopted Robert's Rules of Order. However, that's not the only rules of decorum that are out there. And in fact, there's a lot of examples, especially on the Missouri Municipal League website, that have rules of decorum that are much simpler for smaller governing bodies. Robert's Rules was really, it was designed for large, like Parliament type government bodies. And it doesn't always translate very well for the smaller boards. So, if that's something the city is ever interested in doing, please let me know because there are a lot of good examples out there. Okay, with that, I'll stop. If anyone has any questions, just municipal law in general. Okay. Ethics and conflicts of interest. Okay, so these are pretty straightforward, but you'd be surprised. It's kind of like the whole McDonald's hot coffee thing. You'd be surprised until something happens that it's like, oh, I didn't know I couldn't do this. So, first of all, looking in the statute, There are several sections in the statute that deal with conflicts of interest for governing bodies. And this particular section deals with not only elected and appointed officials, but also employees. But in general, what this statute says is, first, you can't act or refrain from acting because of an offer to pay. In essence, you can't take a bribe. Shocker, I know. That offer to pay doesn't necessarily have to be money. It can be anything of value. Chiefs tickets, Royals tickets, anything like that. You cannot use or disclose confidential information that you've obtained in your office for financial gain. So, for example, if you know the city wants to buy a piece of property, you can't use that information to then go out and purchase it yourself, to then hopefully put yourself in a position where you're negotiating with the city. You cannot favorably act on a matter specifically designed to provide special monetary benefit. That special monetary benefit means that it's going to provide you a benefit that is, or a monetary benefit that no one else is provided. So, for example, if there is a proposal in front of the council to improve the street in front of your house, that to me is not a special monetary benefit because it's benefiting everybody along that street, not just you. However, if you are the only house on that street, that could be considered a special monetary benefit, and therefore that would be something that you would not be able to vote on. You cannot use decision-making authority for financial gain, and you can't advocate for an appointment in exchange for value. So pretty straightforward. Any questions? Okay. Continuing on to the statute, now there's this is specific to members of the governing body, as individuals, what can or can't you do? Well, you cannot perform service for the city for pay other than the compensation you get for your official duties. You cannot sell, rent, or lease property to the city. However, there are exceptions to these. And one is if the transaction is under $500 or $5,000 per year. Or if it's going to be over those things, it is competitively bid, and the official's bid is the lowest received. So let me just take a step back and just say, you will fail in the court of public perception long before you will actually have a legal conflict of interest. So whether you really have a legal conflict of interest, the answer may be no, you don't, but an appearance of impropriety, there might be there, and so that might be a decision that you have to make on whether, do I recuse myself from this matter or not. The other thing is some of these also deal with for individuals, so for members of the governing body that have businesses that want to do business with the city, and if you are an owner of that business, because obviously you're here because of all the money you're making doing your job up there and don't need to have other jobs, right? Not really, right? So you all have different backgrounds, and in some of my smaller cities, for example, a good example, I had an alderman who owned a lawn and landscape business, and so they wanted to provide that service to the city, and so these are the conflicts of interest that we look towards and make sure that they follow those things. So obviously, if you have an interest in a business that wants to do business with the city, there's also some exceptions that you have to look at. So what happens if you do have an interest in something that's coming forward? What you have to do is that it has to be a substantial personal private interest, and that interest I think is a pretty low threshold because the statute hasn't been changed in a long time. Typically it's not just you that has the interest, it could be your spouse or dependent child. And so it's 10% if you own 10% of the business, if you are receiving a gratuity or salary of $10,000 or less. And so those are the types of things that are part of the statute that define what is a personal or private interest. So it's pretty a low threshold. But if you do have an interest, what you need to do is you have to file a written report with the city clerk explaining what the nature of that interest is. I will tell you that the city has its own conflict of interest provision, which I'll get to in just a second. It's a little bit different than this statutory provision, so I'll get to that in just a second. But what this says is that before passing on the ordinance, it has to be submitted to the city clerk. What it does not state in the statute is whether you have to recuse yourself or not. But if you were to come to me with such an interest, I would tell you to recuse yourself and not participate or vote on that ordinance issue. The other thing is that you are also required to file personal financial disclosures each year. So if you have already reported that on your personal financial disclosure, you're deemed compliant. You don't have to file a separate written document to the city clerk. Okay, nepotism. So this is a Missouri constitutional provision, Article 7, Section 6. This is talking about when can you, as a governing body or even employees, when can we work with relatives? And so it applies to public officers and public employees, and basically all it says is you cannot name or appoint a relative within the 4th degree of consanguinity or affinity to office or position in the city. So if you look on the screen, and it's a little bit hard to read up here, but I mean, the 4th degree of consanguinity being by blood and affinity being by marriage, it goes pretty far out, goes to cousins, great uncles, great nephew, great niece. So there's, quite the circle is not small by any means. But what happens is if you happen to do this constitutional provision is self-enforcing, which means you're automatically out of office. So I'll give you an example. 2008, City of Holden, Missouri holds an election. Their fire chief, their beloved fire chief, is voted in as mayor. And so his first order of business is to appoint his brother-in-law to fill his old spot as the fire chief. He's then made aware of this constitutional provision, and he says, I'm sorry, my bad. His brother-in-law steps down. And the Missouri Attorney General got involved and said, hey, you can't fix this problem. So the mayor said, hey, I'm sorry, I'm going to step down. He steps down. In a 4th-class city, when there's a vacancy, then the remaining aldermen get to choose and appoint a mayor. And they're like, we really like him, so we're going to appoint him back into seat. And the Missouri Attorney General said, no, you guys, A for effort, right? That is, really creative what you were trying to do, but this is a self-enforcing provision. You are out of office for this term. So it's my understanding that mayor actually at the next election was voted back in, and so I'm sure he never appointed anybody he was related to back to office, but that's exactly how this provision works. This is not to say that you cannot work with someone that you're related to. This just means do not appoint them. I also suggest that if they're, don't appoint them. If there's anything specific regarding those relatives, meaning if there's a question of hiring, firing, promotion, that you recuse yourself, having to do anything with any relative within that 4th degree of consanguinity. Okay, so lastly, appearance of impropriety. Again, I said this before, you're going to fail in the court of public perception long before there's actual legal conflict of interest. However, these appearances sometimes have the potential of becoming a conflict of interest. So if you think that there is some kind of conflict, please come talk to me. What I will tell you is we'll review it. If there is a conflict, this is something where that should be disclosed on the record, especially before the discussion. And I think that there needs to be a balance between disclosure as well as the duty to vote, because some of my cities, what they'll do is they'll just abstain from voting, and their constituents, no one knows why they're abstaining. And so I think there's something that needs to be said on this is why I'm abstaining, because I have a conflict. So I think that's important to do. Again, abstain from voting, leave the table or dais in this case if possible. I say if possible because I have some cities that only have four aldermen, And sometimes if they leave, if we have someone that leaves, we lose our quorum. So we sometimes have to, you know, figure out how to do this, but I've not run into a issue here, so I think it would be fine if you were to abstain and leave the table or dais. And as, you know, lastly, don't participate in the discussion. So here's what I promised. Blue Springs does have some specific rules on conflicts of interest. This is found in the charter. And what's kind of interesting is that here, if you have a conflict of interest, actually you have to provide that interest in writing to the city council and then refrain from voting or participating at all. And let's see. The other thing is if this provision is willfully violated, then you're guilty of malfeasance in office and you forfeit your office or position. So that's pretty strict. So further, any violation of this section could make any contracts voidable. So we certainly don't want to go back on any of those things. So the other thing that happens is that under the city's code, there's a requirement that conflicts of interest and disclosure reports, there has to be a process on how that works. The city clerk will bring that forward for approval every 2 years. So, okay. Any questions about conflicts of interest? Okay. We are flying through this. Okay, Missouri Sunshine Law. So this is chapter 610. It was originally acted in 1973. Does anyone know what was going on in 1973? You got married? That was exactly why this was enacted. Watergate. Watergate was going on, and so after Watergate, a lot of the states, pretty much all of them, put together these open records and meetings and votes rules, because before that, the cities were not obligated to give out any records whatsoever. In essence, interpreting the Sunshine Law, all meetings and all records are open unless there's an exception that applies. The law is deemed to liberally construe openness, and exceptions are narrowly construed. So if we're in doubt, we can, ask for an opinion. We can seek a judicial opinion. Obviously, we can seek my opinion. But talking a little bit about what the Sunshine Law isn't, it is not a right to know. It's only the ability to find out. So a lot of times when we get requests, a lot of people will state, well, why did the council do this? Or, and that's not what the Sunshine Law is about. It's about, you want a record, we'll give you a record. But we don't have to explain it to you. We don't have to tell you why the councils, did what they did. So it's not a substitute for an educated public. I mean, luckily we've got, people can go back and look at these video, your meetings on video, and can look at and just determine for themselves what they think is the justification. It's also, the Sunshine Law is not the same as FOIA. FOIA is the Freedom of Information Act. That is a federal rule that does not apply to cities, but I will just tell you, a lot of times we get requests in and they will include, under the Freedom of Information Act, I want all of this as well as this. I treat that typically as a Sunshine Law request. We're not here to hide records. We want to provide whatever records we have. So Sunshine Law is also about public meetings. And so public meeting procedures, we have to provide notice. Under the statute, we have to give 24 hours notice. And that is exclusive of any holidays or weekends. So for the meeting tonight, notice had to be posted at least by 5 p.m. on Friday evening. There has to be a tentative agenda, and that's just it. It's a tentative agenda. You can change your agenda, but we have to provide a tentative agenda so people know what we are discussing. It has to be at a reasonable time and place. And I've run into a situation where the meetings were a reasonable time, but the place, it was a Arts Commission meeting. The members of the Art Commission would meet at someone's house at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Not unreasonable time, but nobody felt comfortable going to an Arts Commission meeting at someone's house. And so we ended up moving those meetings to City Hall. But as you can see, we also need to make sure that if we know, and we don't always know this, but if we know that there'll be a large gathering, we need to try and anticipate, and if we need to be in a larger arena to do these meetings, then that's what we need to do. Minutes, we need to take just basic minutes, time, date, who was present, if there's votes taken, but there doesn't have to be verbatim minutes by all means. Sunshine Law also allows for emergency meetings. So if, for example, we need to meet on less than 24 hours, the Sunshine Law does provide that, and it states that, okay, if you have to meet and you can't give 24 hours notice, then you have to put the reason you can't give the notice in the minutes. And this can't be just for inconvenience. It has to be a true emergency. And then lastly, what COVID has shown us is that we can do electronic meetings. And so that's another option. Closed meetings or records, up on the screen, the ones that are bold, those are probably the most common reasons that cities go into closed session. They're legal actions, real estate transactions, or personnel. But there's approximately, I believe the count is up to, I believe around 25 exceptions. So with regards to what's, exception of records. Closed meetings have to be listed on the agenda. There has to be a motion to go into closed session. There has to be a roll call vote. Once you're in closed session, you really need to stay on the topic. And so when I'm in there, a lot of times you'll hear me say, I don't want to be the Sunshine Law police, but we need to get back on track. Only roll call votes again while we're in closed session. Keep basic minutes. We do not, it does not have to be verbatim at all. Then we need to make a motion to go out of closed session. Keep in mind that once you're out of closed session, you're not out of the meeting. So after that, you need to, if there's anything to report on the record, that's when you would do that out of closed session. And if not, then you would just do a motion to adjourn. Okay. Any questions on Sunshine Law? As always. Okay. Well, I was expecting to go to 9 o'clock. Darn it. Okay. Practical role of City Council. I'm sure all of you are very well aware. You're representing the public. You're developing policies, programs, procedures. You're ensuring accountability and transparency. These are all great things. I will tell you, as individual councilmen, though, you have little or no power to act. Ultimately, City Council, all of your power is through a majority of the council. That's where the action happens. So more recently, I've had some situations in some other cities where we have in those cities, it was aldermen who wanted to dive down into the day-to-day operations and direct staff on what they should be doing. Ultimately, they really don't have the power to do that. It's got to be by a majority vote of the governing body. So these next 3 slides, I'll go through them slowly, but they say the same thing. So some people see it in a pyramid scheme. I like this analogy the best on governing body and staff responsibility. So as you can see, thinking of an airplane or a flight, when the plane is at its highest, that's really where the governing body, that's where you operate. You are setting the vision and purpose of the city. Staff's responsibility in this one, at this 50,000-foot view, is just to support that vision, provide some information. But as the plane is getting closer and closer to the ground, that's moving towards more of the day-to-day operations. And as you can see, those day-to-day operations, are more for staff to carry out that direction that you have given, and, for the governing body to, you have less and less to do with that day-to-day responsibility. All right, with that, practical tips. Oh, did you have any questions about that? No. Okay, practical advice. I will say, just working with various cities, one thing is to trust staff. Staff, this is their livelihood, and, it doesn't help to berate staff in a meeting. There's certainly a time, place, and manner to challenge a decision that staff has. Also, I would say give fair warning. If you know that you're going to be bringing up an issue that you want a complete and satisfactory answer to, let staff know in advance so that they can be prepared, and that way you can have the information you need to make that decision. And that can't always be the case. Sometimes we'll have for example, public hearing or something, and questions pop up, and we understand that. But if you kind of know that it's going to be brought up, it would be great to let staff know. There's only one person I've ever worked with, and I think she probably had a photographic memory, because you could ask her any question about any planning, any development whatsoever in the city, and she remembered it at any time. She was kind of amazing that way. Involve your city attorney before you make a legal decision. It seems pretty intuitive. However, I will tell you, a lot of times I will hear comments about, well, we didn't want to, it's going to cost the city money, so we didn't want to get the city attorney involved, or we didn't want them at this meeting. I will tell you, it costs the city a lot less to have us up front, have us at the meetings, versus making a decision and then having to help clean up after the decision has been made. Also, you can always call a timeout. If, for example, there's a public hearing, something becomes heated, or maybe all of a sudden you have a legal question and you're thinking to yourself, oh boy, you always have that option to call a timeout. So never forget that. Last one, decorum, which I don't think there's any issues here. Everyone here has always been polite, shows respect. You always use titles, with regards to mayor, councilman. You pay good attention. Nobody's looking at their phones when other people are talking. So, anyway, with that. All right, does anybody have any questions? Okay.
I have a comment.
Yes.
All right.
I think you did a good job. I've sat through a bunch of these over the years, and you did a very good job of explaining things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from Ms. Baird? All right, thank you for that presentation.
Thank you.
It was as exciting as ever. And you did it before 9 o'clock, so
I did.
impressive.
Okay.
All right, I do see the applicant from item 4 in the room now. So if anybody wants to make a motion to remove from the table item 4, now would be an appropriate time to do that.
So be it.
Got a motion from Councilmember Kaler. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion on removing item 4 from the table? Is this roll call or voice vote? I just on voice vote? Okay. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, no? Motion carries. Mr. Brown, I see you in the audience here. We tabled item 4, the Tim Hortons sign, for you to have an opportunity to do a presentation. Do you want to let staff go first, or do you want to come talk to us first?
Do I have a chance to respond to staff after my presentation?
I believe we can make that available to you.
Okay, so we can let staff go
Okay.
first.
Before you this evening, Mayor and council members, is a request for an appeal of the Planning Commission decision which was voted to not recommend an approval of the master alternative sign plan for the use of a non-conforming pole sign for Tim Hortons Coffee Shop. On March 24th, 2025, the applicant appeared before Planning Commission to request this application for the use of an existing non-conforming pole sign located outside of the I-70 corridor. Following review and discussion, Planning Commission denied this request. Per section 501.030E of the City Code, the applicant was informed of the opportunity to appeal the Commission's decision within 10 days. However, no appeal was submitted during the allowable timeframe. It is important to note that the City Code does not impose a mandatory waiting period before submitting a new application for a master and alternative sign plan following a denial. The applicant is requesting an amendment to the master and alternative sign plan for the proposed Tim Hortons coffee shop that is located at 1900 Northwest 7 Highway. This pole sign was originally installed for the former's Backyard Burgers, which has been classified as a non-conforming since the business has been vacant over 180 days. The pole sign is also non-conforming due to the location of this business, which does not comply with the requirements which are outlined in Sign Code Section 501.060 C2A. The applicant is requesting the approval to allow the continued use of this existing non-conforming pole sign. The proposed non-conforming pole sign, which is approximately 80 square feet, and the property does not abut or is located within the I-70 corridor. Staff does not believe this request is warranted for the following reasons. The property is not located between the Interstate 70 and frontage roads. The property is neither within 400 feet of the I-70 pavement edge, excluding on and off ramps, nor is it positioned or close to I-70 as possible while complying with all location requirements. The location of the sign is approximately 3,069 feet from I-70 corridor. The current non-conforming pole sign is located in the current water easement shown on the plans provided. And there is also a 4 foot and 6 inches of open space where a proposed monument sign can be placed. It has been an effort for the city to remove pole signs located outside of the I-70 corridor, and the proposed signage is not appropriate for the time, place, and manner since it is located outside the I-70 corridor and is also located within the water easement. Staff does not recommend approval of the master alternative sign plan application at this time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff on this item? Councilmember Kaler.
Did I understand correctly that they didn't meet the guidelines within the appeal time and we gave them the opportunity to appeal?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Your Honor.
Councilmember Erickson.
Probably a small question, but when I watched the planning commission, I wrote down notes that it was 3,690 feet, and you just said 3,069. Was that my transcription error?
I've always had it as 3,069
Okay,
feet.
so I was an error on that. And that 3,069 then is, do you add 400 feet to that? Because you said it's outside the corridor is 400 feet, right?
That measurement was actually from the I-70 edge pavement. So it would be my correction that it was not the corridor.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, so normally at this time, we would have the opportunity to take a vote. I hear, Mr. Brown, do you have some information you want to present?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you have that opportunity.
Mr. Mayor and council members, a group involved with Tim Hortons purchased the Backyard Burger building on North 7 Highway. By the time all the players and financing was in place, more than 6 months passed since the closing of Backyard Burgers to apply for a refacing permit for the existing pole sign. This pole sign is very important for this business. With this economy, things move more slowly than they did a few years ago when the 6 months statute was in place. if the owners were really clear that this was not going to be allowed, they would have reconsidered purchasing the property in the first place. So after working with staff, I pretty much knew that the Planning Commission would have to turn down this request because they have to follow the ordinances and regarding signage. And so I was not surprised when I was turned down. The reason I was not able to apply within 10 days is I had eye surgery and there were a lot of issues. So I appreciate the opportunity now that I have to come before this body. This is one of the first 3 Tim Horton restaurants in the Midwest. 2 in Blue Springs, 1 in Independence. The next closest Tim Hortons is in Ohio and in Texas. So this will be drawing people to Blue Springs that have never been to a Tim Hortons, don't even know much about it. So I think this could be a great benefit economically to the city. Visibility is very important. This is a commuter dependent business. It will draw from westbound traffic on I-70. Unfortunately, it is not as close to I-70 as we would have preferred, but the pole sign is very important. Commuters will know it is on 7 Highway. So when they start going northbound on 7 Highway, they'll look at some of the other pole signs, and if they don't see that pole sign, that existing pole signs, they might give up. So there is a cross-access easement, and I will show that in a little while. There's also a water line easement that we weren't aware of when we first went before the Planning Commission. Years ago, someone in the American Society of Planning Officials decided that pole signs were bad and monument signs were good, and signs mounted on buildings were good, and that's pretty much been the way it's been in almost all jurisdictions. So monument signs can be attractive, and if they can easily be seen, they work well, even though sometimes they block sight lines. But sometimes a pole sign is the only thing that will work. Now, when I did the La Quinta on Woods Chapel Road, I had to put up a tower so that they could see the La Quinta logo. But in this particular case, as you will see, I can't put up a tower, and you're not really going to be able to see. So let's go. This sign, you can see we've got the Price Chopper. We're going to head north on 7, so you can see that this pole sign is not unique. So let's go number 2, U.S. Bank. Let's go to the next one, number 3, Walgreens. Number 4, Miller Theater. Much, much larger sign than the Backyard Burger had. Probably about 4 or 5 times larger. Then let's go to Tim Hortons, the next one. You can see that we'll look at that more closely later, but you can see that below the sign there are there are 2 big evergreen trees and some other plants that make it impossible to see the sign. So now let's go on further north. We got the car wash, and then the next one, Sonic. So this sign is not really standing alone. It's in a friendly forest of other pole signs, you might say. Now let's go to next one. Now, as you can see, the first one that she showed, if you, let me make sure I can see this clearly. Yeah, do you want to zoom down to the left? But there. Now see, originally, from the drawings that we got from the engineer, the sign was shown the pole was shown right on the border of the water easement and that space between the water easement and the cross-access easement. Well, actually, when we went out there and measured, it's not. You can see where the actual location is. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, I've outlined in the purple, I've outlined the water easement, and then I've got the cross-access easement in the lighter shade, and there's only 4 foot 6 inches between. It's very difficult to put in a monument sign in that small a space. Now let's go to the next slide. Okay, so up in the upper right-hand corner, you can see where I did a little sketch showing how a monument sign might work. Can we zoom in on that a little bit more, maybe? Okay, so because the existing curb is there, it's not really a good idea to cut right exactly next to the curb when you're excavating for a footing because of the way the soil pressure and so basically starting the footing right at the water line easement edge, I can get a monument sign 2'2", maybe a little bit more if we can put it a little closer. I don't want it too close to the curb because it could be easily hit. So I looked around to find a monument sign of that proportion, and I had to go back about 1,500 years. I found that one has a built-in stone base. Excuse me, I can't be serious all the time. So let's go to the next one. That is four-sided architecture, by the way. That might be the coffee god, I don't know. So don't we have...
You have that one labeled as number 12.
Well, that's...
Or is it the other one?
That's what we would like to do. That's actually looking that's looking south. If you were looking north, you wouldn't even see it. So staff made a big deal about other businesses had pole signs that were removed and were replaced with monument signs. So north of I-70. So let's look at that. Let's go to, there we go. There's QT now. Very obviously, easily seen, highly visible monument sign. Not a problem. Let's go to the next one. Same thing here. Valvoline, they had to replace theirs with a monument sign. Easy to be seen. Let's go to the 66. Same thing here. Easily seen monument sign. So removing the pole signs wasn't a big deal. Now if we go to the next sign, there you can see, if you want to zoom in a little bit, you can see that's the Woods Chapel Road, Tim Hortons, existing monument sign when it was another burger place. No problem, you can see it. So there was no question on that one. So now let's go to the one that, let's see, it should be number 18. There, now if you look in the middle of that sign, you'll see there's a little red ribbon around my surveyor's stick. You see that? See that? That's 12 feet. That is the maximum height of a monument sign in Blue Springs. And so we have a unique situation here. We can't really put in a monument sign. I hate to take out, there's 2 large trees there and some other shrubbery, and that shrubbery helps block the business to the south, which has a lot of parked vehicles. So I would like to see you be business friendly here and allow this company to have a good exposure. And I think this is an exception of all the other pole signs. If we remove this pole sign, what are they going to do? A monument sign would not work for them. So as we saw, you represent the public, and here we are, as part of the public, wanting to do business here, and there is a time and place to challenge decisions made by staff, and this is my time. I appreciate what the staff has done, but they have to follow the ordinance, and I think you guys have the authority to grant this variance. So I pray that you would do so. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Brown from the council? Councilmember Kaler.
Did we have, when we started demoing, was the proper permits pulled at that point when you started demoing?
I was not involved in that portion. I was only involved with the signs.
Okay.
So I can't answer that question.
Well, I'll answer it for you. So everybody will know there was leniency there, not having the proper permits pulled, and was allowed to go ahead and demo and not shut the place down with failure to get the permits. So I'm having a hard time. The main reason you want this pole sign is, tell me again.
So the business can be seen because it's drawing new traffic.
Where are you trying to see it from?
Northbound 7 Highway.
Okay. I think if we can pull up one of my pictures there, you actually can't see that from I-70. You can't see it Duncan Road. You can't see it from Shaw. You can't see it from Country Club, and you barely can even see it from Duncan Road. This is up on I-70, looking down at 7 Highway northbound.
Oh, okay. And then I gotta go back out.
And you can't even see the CBS or Country Club or drive there. That's Country Club Drive there. And I might mention that some of these existing pole signs are, they've been there since the existing of the business. It has been there before some of these others. They were there, some of them even back in the day with the two-lane 7 Highway. But that's Country Club there. Go to the next one, and this is at Duncan Road where you actually see your pole sign. And I was just kind of confused on that. So the Friendly Forest, as you call it, they are actually there prior to the Backyard Burger even being built. And I understand to a certain degree why you would like to keep the pole sign, but there is conformities that we must comply to, and I don't care what city you're in, you have to conform to the city ordinances. And thank you, Your Honor.
Any other questions for Mr. Brown from the council? Councilmember Erickson?
I'm not sure this is a question to Mr. Brown, or maybe just a take off a little bit on Councilmember Kaler. Judging from the photographs that you showed to us, is it fair to assume, and you can answer this however you want or whatever, that one would have to be at the corner of Duncan Road and 7 Highway to see the pole sign, if the pole sign were approved? Is that what I'm hearing? And I also think, Mr. Brown, earlier you said that the pole sign, when you showed what you wanted with the red on the top, you said it wasn't visible from the south? I believe those were your words?
Well, that picture was looking south. If you're
correct, and you said that you said you could see it from the north, but coming from the south, you could not see it. So tying these together, my question really is, what would one gain by being able to see the sign when you're there? In other words, people will come to Tim Hortons to go to Tim Hortons, not to see the sign. I think that's where I am with that.
Well, my answer to that would be, particularly the first time people coming, they're going to be northbound, and they get to, just before they get to Duncan Road, they see the sign. Oh, there it is. But if maybe they would give up. And what's my option? I can't really get a monument sign in there, so it's not really fair to this business It was 97 when this was built. I don't know when the others were built, but
Your Honor,
that's,
could I ask staff a
Councilmember
question?
Erickson.
Staff, could you address that? Is it possible to put a monument sign in? Do we have some, where you could put it on a different base and raise it up? You said 12 feet?
Yes, that would be so I'll use this one. So as you can see, there's the 4 foot and 6 inches. As I explained at Planning Commission, we've seen this on numerous signs being modern. You can do the base to be smaller and then fan out to something bigger, and it could be up to 12 feet. I can't think of a sign off the top of my head that is that way, but I've seen them many times, that kind of signs that fan out and
Okay,
be able
thank
to
you,
hold it.
and then, can I go on again? So, if the sign could be 12 feet high and we did not have the tree, and God knows I love trees, I'd hate to cut down a tree. But anyway, if that tree weren't there, would that be visible, 12 feet? I mean, it seems pretty high to me.
it would be visible if you took out all those trees and shrubbery.
Okay.
Not all of it is on the property of this, of Tim Hortons. It's the property to the south. The problem is, if you're gonna put a sign with a skinny base going up and then fanning out, that's almost like a pole sign. So I don't understand how aesthetically that's going to make a difference. We already have the pole sign there. We might as well use it and give them the opportunity to attract business from the south that otherwise might have problems finding it. I mean,
One last comment, if you don't mind.
Do you have a comment or question for him?
This is actually a comment.
Well, let's wait, let's see if we have any other questions for Mr. Brown, so we can sit down, and then we'll do
It's a comment
discussion.
question,
Yeah.
but-
Any other questions for Mr. Brown before we let him sit down? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Brown, for your presentation.
thank you.
Now we'll move to discussion, if you have anything for discussion.
So this is a comment then to the council, but Mr. Brown, I'd like for you to know, today I was trying to determine in my own way to figure out if this sign pole that's in question was erected in 1996 or 7, whenever Backyard Burger was in place, and I couldn't find a distinct answer, but I did find something that was unique. They said and this was an AI, that was ChatGPT that gave me this information, that when Backyard Burger opened, there were lines backed up underneath of I-70. I don't think they were backed up to go see the sign. I thought, I took solace in that in a sense, because it sounds like your business or Tim Hortons would be successful whether the sign were there or weren't there, because it would sell on its own, not because of its sign.
Just procedurally, thank you, staff, for correcting me. We do not currently have a motion to approve this, so we're not actually open for discussion. So can I have a motion
Your
to
Honor, I had a
approve?
question for staff.
Okay, can we get the motion first? I don't know if we can ask questions even technically.
Is this one of these move to approve
Yeah.
on the first?
No, this is just resolutions. I just need a motion to approve.
Make a motion that we approve the resolution as presented.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Now we have discussion.
Now you can
Councilmember
discuss.
Bremmel, you can ask your question.
The CJ real estate sign, is that in the easement? Do we know? Is that possible to do a sign similar to that one? Because I don't believe that business has been there that long. Was that an existing sign, or is that the sign they put in, or?
I forget which one.
His pictures.
No, the one you had up.
This one?
Oh yeah, one of his, the one that shows the monument sign in the foreground.
Oh, that was.
We're trying to find the picture. That one?
Yes, sir.
That would have been put in at the time of the development of that property, and so
Is
that's
that part of that plat? The same plat?
no. And so they would have been after the code changed to require pole signs be within the I-70 corridor. So they were able to put in a pole sign that seems to be compliant with everything, as far as I can tell.
Any further discussion, questions for staff?
Was your question about this first sign here, this monument sign here, or was it about the Tim Hortons? I'm sorry.
No, mine was about the CJ real estate sign.
Okay.
Could they do something similar to that?
Yeah, I probably could. That base is a little, is wider than 4.5 feet.
So then they would have to ask for a variance of the easement on that if they wanted to go down that path?
That's one of the items that I think staff has had trouble recommending approval on. This is the existing sign encroaches into the easement. Normally, we don't allow structures to encroach into a water line or sanitary sewer line easement, but that's not to say that Public Works or engineering has made exceptions to that rule based upon the actual location of the water line itself and whether or not they have enough room to still access that water line. So that was, that discussion was never had with city staff to see if that was an option. Removing the trees was never discussed or cutting down or lowering the height of those trees was never discussed with city staff as an option. And we weren't even aware of the business owner's need to have the sign as a condition of opening until way towards the end of the process. And so it just went to the request for the master sign plan variance, and there were no discussions really with city staff about how to try to make it work.
Thank you.
Any
Your
other
Honor,
discussion?
if I may.
Councilmember Edmondson.
And again, this is discussion, but, one of the things that's important for a business to open, whether it's an established business or a new business, is getting people to notice that you're there. That can be done in various ways: advertising, pole signs, monument signs, signs on the building. All those things are important to get a business off the ground and keep moving. This is an existing sign that was already there. The cost of doing this, as opposed to tearing this one out and then putting in a monument sign, you basically have doubled the cost of what you're doing. The space to put it in, the one you're talking about, CJ Realty, that was a car lot at one time in that location. So you're not necessarily comparing apples to apples on that. It was a different use prior to CJ taking it over. To me, this is, you've got an existing sign. They have various good arguments to keep that in there, the pole sign, and just make use of that addition to advertise this business. This is a new business in the area, but trying to get people to know that that's a new business in the area, they don't have a reputation, I think, that a Backyard Burger did when it came into town. To me, this is kind of a no-brainer in the fact that, hey, here's a new business to come in, make use of what they have already to advertise it and make it a successful business. There's a second business going over on Woods Chapel in which they are living up to the current signs because that's how it was. So we're actually getting two businesses out of this in town, two different businesses that are employing employees, bringing revenue into town. And now we're trying to put up an additional cost to it and a roadblock for them to go through. And to me, that seems ridiculous. So I'm in favor of going forward and letting them have this.
Okay. Any other discussion? Council?
Your Honor, in
Councilmember Erickson?
the sake of demeanor, I won't say ridiculous, but we have a sign ordinance, we have rules, we have the desire, good or bad, but right now it's in place that when a business is gone and the grandfathering is gone, pole signs come down, and we've had the experience with that. They've shown Price Chopper that hasn't gone out of business. That pole sign should come down if that goes out, if it follows the same thing. Cost of doing business, I understand that, but there are ways that you said that weren't even explored, like cutting the tree down, which is probably 7 Highway. Anyway, I cannot support it. This has been here for 3 decades now, maybe, or 4 decades almost. And if it goes back up, then it's another 3 or 4 decades, and our sign ordinance is just not being applied. And then what happens next time? So I can't support it at all.
Okay. Any other discussion from the council?
Your Honor,
Councilmember Kaler.
there was Bob Evans here in Blue Springs, and that sign went down and they put another sign up. So, with all due respect, I'll have to disagree with Councilman from District 2 on that. And if I remember right, Councilmember Councilmember Edmondson was on that sign committee when all these were made, changes were made. And the point of going to the monument signs was to try to find conformity to it. And I too am like Councilmember Erickson. I can't support this. We had a sign ordinance. We tried to go along with the sign ordinance, and I can't support it.
Any further discussion? Councilmember Brummel?
Yeah, did I hear that this is condition of opening a sign?
I believe that was what was told to us by the owner at a time, at one point during this master sign plan process, is that they needed to have this sign in order to open. And the applicant just stated something to the kin of, if they wouldn't have been able to have the sign, the owner might not have chosen this site.
Well, didn't they have the other site on Witch Chapel first?
I don't know exactly which site they purchased.
And therefore
when.
this one came up, and so they decided to jump off of Witch Chapel and proceed with the 7 Highway.
All right, are we ready to vote? Any
Your
other discussion?
Honor,
Councilman Erickson?
That's kind of supposition. I think if they couldn't have the sign, they weren't gonna open. This is an international company, I guess, Canada, United States, that defines as international. I would think that they would have understood the rules of Blue Springs before they proceeded, and now they're kind of crying, oh, sorry about that.
All right, this is a resolution, so we can do a voice vote, but I think it's probably safer to do a roll call vote, so let's roll call this.
Councilmember Edmondson,
Yes.
Rowan,
No.
Kaler,
No.
Tholen,
No.
Brummel,
No.
Erickson,
No,
Mayor Lovesay.
Yes.
Motion fails.
Okay, next item on the agenda is visitors. I don't have any speaker appearance forms. Any council member comments? Anybody have anything to add this evening? Went to a meeting or an event you want to tell us about?
John, are you gonna mention about the softball fields?
I was going to do that. You're welcome to if you would.
I will allow you to. Thank you for mentioning
Well,
that.
since nobody's jumping out, why don't we talk about it? Councilmember Kaler, what were we doing before the meeting today?
We were trying to be roped into playing softball against Public Works, Parks.
Yeah.
And but anyway, the fields are nice out there. Got artificial turf, so to speak, on the infields. There'll be a lot of softball now without having to worry about it being rained out, and a great improvement. I think it looks good, and excited to watch the evolutions. Is that the name?
Exceptionals.
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 Out there, being able to go around the field in a wheelchair and be able to play softball.
Yeah.
Your Honor, if I would.
Councilmember Edmondson.
Councilman Kaler might mention where this is at to those people that aren't familiar
Go
with
ahead.
where the ball fields are at.
Go ahead there.
I
Well,
will
it's
men-
located at Hidden Valley Complex, basically in the back of Hidden Valley Complex. And you mentioned the exceptionals. They've been going on for 35 years. Matter of fact, I was actually on the Parks Commission during that period of time when they first got their starts. So it was nice to see some of those people again that actually started or are still around and devoting their time to that.
And Councilmember Edmondson, can you tell us what the exceptionals are?
So the Exceptionals is a softball league that's put together with people with disabilities, and they're paired with a buddy. And what they end up doing is they are allowed to participate in a sport with the help of volunteers to move them around the bases. And It had a small start when it first started out, and a lot of the softball teams were those volunteers that came forward and helped with that. And now it's gotten some public following too, so it's open for other people to do. So it's really neat. They meet on Monday nights out there for their games, and with this new surface, it's an artificial surface. It makes it a lot easier for them to do that because weather conditions don't impact that. You know, a wheelchair runs easier over carpet than it does mud, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't tried that, but I'm sure it does. So.
Yes, this represented a significant investment in Hidden Valley, so that's big as well. 9 softball fields with artificial infield turf. So pretty big deal, not just for the exceptionals who use it on Monday nights, but softball tournaments. I think our parks director mentioned some rain over the weekend and some tournaments that were in town, and they weren't concerned about having to cancel because they knew the new turf field could handle it. So big investment, big improvement for Hidden Valley. We'll continue to find ways to do that. I don't have any events between now and the next city council meeting. Councilman Erickson, do you have something to add?
In honor of my mother, please remember Mother's Day coming up on Sunday.
Absolutely. Mother's Day is on Sunday, and don't forget that. Lots of local businesses you can buy some things for mom here in town. So don't forget to look there first. Also, I was reminded the fishing derby is this Saturday at Rotary Park. Hopefully they've got the fish stocked already, Justin. Are they ready? Okay, all right. The fish are coming, so they're gonna get some really big bass, right? Ready? Okay. Yeah, this big, right? That's what the pictures will show.
I'm gonna jump in on that one because they're coming on Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. And evidently they're gonna have crappie this year because they couldn't get enough bluegill or something. So
Oh, wow, okay.
a little change there. Instead of just catfish and bluegill, that you're gonna have catfish and crappie.
I'm looking for those big channel catfish. That's
Yeah.
what we're going for. Okay, with that, I have no other items for this evening. I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, no? We are adjourned.